You know, we have this experience that, sight is truth, right? Seeing is believing, we say. And, you open your eyes, there's the world, it's immediate, it's passive, and it's reality. Well, the experience that I had sort of progressively losing my sight from about 13 to about age 25 really shattered that illusion for me. And I literally saw firsthand that sight, this magical experience of sight, far from objective truth or external reality, it's this personal virtual reality we create for ourselves that implicates our memories, opinions, emotions, our conceptual understanding of the world, all sorts of things. And yet we experience it sort of passively as this direct representation of the world. And that really was, if you'll pardon the pun, an eye-opening realization for me that led to this vision that I have, because sight is really just one way, right, that we shape the realities we experience. We create our own worlds in many other ways, really in every way. And having the opportunity to literally see that firsthand as I lost my sight, turned out to be really one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life. The value in this eyes wide open vision that I speak of is it's not about sight, it's not about blindness, it's about the lessons we can take in really taking control over the reality we want for ourselves. Literally choosing who you want to be and how you want to live your life in any moment, right? So yes, we do this with sight, but we do it with the self-limiting assumptions we make about ourselves. This critic in our minds, it's that nasty voice that is quick to pass judgment, to tell us what we can't do, to keep us off the field, to tell us what others are thinking and saying about us, right? And the way this sort of critic can be so effective, so powerful in kind of dominating our lives, in my experience, is by through an insistence on perfection, right, which is impossible. Right? The critic insists upon perfection, which essentially guarantees your failure. Through comparison, relative merit, right? That critic will compare you to anybody, right? Real or imagined, from any era. And the critic will swap out, different definitions of success or value or purpose or, for your own, and, you won't even notice it. So, the critic, and of course this comes from Teddy Roosevelt's, brilliant remarks about the critic and the strongman. The critic for me really is sort of that embodiment of, again, our fear of failure, our own worst enemy in our minds. Roosevelt's strongman, on the other hand, is someone who has no use for perfection, right? Only progress, right? Someone who values effort and growth, right? Whose focus is momentum, right? The next step. Not this overarching enterprise, this overwhelming endeavor, but what is my next step? For the strongman, success lies in striving, and actually striving, right, towards a noble pursuit, which at the end of the day is the only thing we can control, right? Whether or not we are striving to our best toward a noble pursuit. You make a big decision, and later it either works out phenomenally well or is a catastrophic failure. Well, it's so tempting in the face of the catastrophic failure to go back and beat yourself up and say, oh, this was the worst decision and I'm an idiot and this was terrible. And likewise, in the face of great success, it's very easy for people to tell themselves, well, man, I must have been a genius, right? I'm the smartest guy there is. And just as a law of physics, right, as a proposition of logic, that can't be true. It cannot be that subsequent events, determine the quality of actions you make, decisions you make, conversations you have, behaviors you exhibit. You have to assess those things from the perspective of, the time in which they take place. We are, so often our own worst enemies, right? We keep ourselves, off the stage, for fear of bad reviews, and don't even realize that, in the process we're, forgetting how to dance and losing the joint in, right? And it's just such a shame. For me, that first step of the strongman, to me, kind of encompasses, sort of victory over that critic, right? That's where you've said, look, maybe this is crazy, maybe it's not, maybe everybody thinks I'm, way off base here, whatever. All the what ifs, all the, why I should, whatever. I've put all that aside, and I have committed to, enter the arena. And that is the defining moment, I think, for the strongman. And I think when we're honest with ourselves and when we start to recognize significance in moments like that in our lives, when we start to say, well, if I did this, it's a big move, right? And it doesn't have to be a huge move financially or economic, or even, it doesn't have to make sense to anyone else why it's a big move. It's a big move for you. It's important to pay attention to those feelings, because often that's the strong man inside trying to tell you, we can do this. Let's get over this, our fears. Let's get over our self-doubt, and let's do this. Everything's a choice. Every moment of your life is a choice. How do you want to spend that moment? Who do you want to be? It is not the circumstances we confront that dictate the lives we experience. It just cannot be. There are counterexamples all over the place. I'm just a blind guy, like that's no big deal. But you think about prisoners of war who endure the most unspeakable of human atrocities, Nazi concentration camp survivors, and on and on and on. And you find examples of remarkable people who, despite these circumstances, make a choice to find purpose in life, to find joy, to be a source of strength for others in their lives. And these shining folks, again, to my mind, prove categorically it's not the circumstances we confront that dictate how we, the lives we experience. So choose to be happy, literally in every moment. And again, I'm not saying it's easy, again, and I'm not saying it's always easy for me, but it's certainly a worthwhile endeavor. I mean, you spill on yourself, or you knock something over, or you're late for a meeting, or it can derail you. It can be something quote unquote awful. Meanwhile, most of the world is worried about healthcare and food and clothing. But or you can choose to laugh about it. You can choose to have fun with it. You can choose to let it go. And again, I think every moment is an amalgam of precisely those choices. You're the master of your reality. And once you buy that, once you're willing to take responsibility for the fact that you are literally creating the life you are experiencing, the reality, your reality is your creation. Again, the rest is details. Again, this notion of the critic and this notion of the way we, can keep ourselves off the stage, or we can be our own, worst enemies in terms of our fear of failure. There's several sort of key moments in my life, there were two really simple questions that I've used to try to take back control of my reality. In those situations, one being, what is it truly that I aim to accomplish? I think very often when we find ourselves debilitated by fear of failure, that critic, anxiety, whatever, it can be a relief to say, whoa, wait a minute. I am loading so much junk onto this, onto what's going on here, onto what's at stake. Let me just take a step back and remind myself, what am I in this for? Right? What am I trying to accomplish? What is my endeavor here? What's my purpose? And oftentimes, in my experience, when you do that, there's kind of a big sigh of relief to, oh yeah, this really isn't all that big a deal. This isn't so bad. And the second one really is what's my best next step? Right? Let's focus on today, this moment, right now. In truth, that's all there ever is. Right? So we spend a lot of time on doom and gloom, future foreboding, awfulizing, and not enough time on this moment right now. What is my best next step? What can I do right now to make progress? And the truth of the matter is, the world changes, a million times a day. You're going to change a million times a day. Who knows what's going to happen on the journey from A to Z? Just focus on getting from A to B, and get that done, and we'll worry about C to Z later.